The cloth from which he is cut. I mean, that is a
going on, guys? This is the Road to Gold podcast. I'm your co-host, Dylan Maven, here with my other co-host, Ron Askew. And we're here just to bring you some MMA news, UFC insight, just some things that you might not have seen. And we're really excited to kick this off.
Very excited, very excited. We've talked about this for a long time now. We're finally here, finally getting a handle on things. This is something we've been looking forward to for a while now.
No, especially me and you, we go back a long time, and we've been talking about starting an MMA podcast for a while. We just feel like we have so many thoughts and such different things to get off, different perspectives, and this is just one way to get it out. And like I said, we are super excited. We got a great show for y'all planned. We're going to touch UFC 298. We're going to give you some plays of the week. We even got debate of the day. We're going to really get into it today. But just to give people a kind of a background insight into both of us, how did you get into MMA?
I was young. One day just happened to, I think, turn the channel and just saw like some a combat sport that wasn't boxing going on. And, it caught my eye. And then like I was probably 7th grade, maybe 6th grade. I remember like, it's kind of always in the back of my mind. I was out shopping with my dad one day and there was a gym and they asked that I want to like do a little trial, see how I liked it. It was mixed martial arts. And I remember just seeing those that fight from this TV one day and thinking like, this is interesting. Let me actually try this. So that day I tried it, we left, and I remember talking to my dad, like that was actually really fun. Like that was really fun. And then from there, I started watching more and more and more. And then probably since 6th grade, I've just always been captivated by it.
I was going to say, so you've been kind of doing this for a long time now. How have you competed before? Have you really been in them trenches? Like how did that go?
Yeah, I competed in a couple of jiu-jitsu tournaments. My gym was very jiu-jitsu focused. With our fighting discipline also being a little Muay Thai kickboxing, a little mix. And I won a couple of tournaments when I was younger. But at the time, I was also really heavily involved in football. So I really couldn't dedicate the time that I wanted to dedicate into it at the same time because I was also really dedicated to football. So ultimately, it kind of just, like was one of those two things that I was kind of go back and forth every day of the week.
I was going to say, how do you balance that? Because, I mean, I'm going to get into a little bit about myself, but just being a former football player, like, how did you balance MMA and football? Those are two titans clashing. Like, how'd you balance that?
Great parents, honestly. Being able to after school, after practice and stuff, being able to take me to jiu-jitsu practice, MMA practice, wrestling practice. Getting a car. I got a car pretty young as a sophomore, so being able to drive myself
better than me
places, it was something. So it was just, we had to just kind of manage our time between weekends, weekdays, like making sure I did my work on time, did my work in school sometimes. But if there's something you want to do, you're gonna do it. You're gonna figure out a way to do it.
Oh no, that's very true. Now, also because unlike me, you followed the sport essentially since you were a youngin'. Who were those first kind of influences that got you into the sport? Back in you're back in them 08, 09 days.
Yeah.
So who were you looking at as a youngin'?
My first influences were Rampage and Rashad. I love their rivalry they had. Rampage, such a heavy power hitter. Rashad had a little finesse style to him, but he was a really good wrestler. I think this may have been about a year or two after the Flash head kick to one of his opponents, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, like these two guys are really the truth. And then it kind of snowballed from there between like trying to find some favorite fighters of mine, which didn't take too long for me to find out. Within probably a couple months of really getting into it, I watched John Jones beat Brandon Vera, and at that point, I was like, "This is my favorite fighter." Like I saw some fights before that of him. I kept him in note, but after he TKO'd Brandon Vera with the elbow to the orbital, which broke his orbital, that's what made me decide this is my guy. This is my guy for sure.
John Jones. So safe to say he's your GOAT. I'm just asking. Out of curiosity, who else do you have on that GOAT list? Just to get a feel of who you are. I'm curious. Who's on your
as far as my GOAT list goes, this is something that it's a revolving door, honestly, because there's a lot of really great names. But if I had to create like a top 4, like a Mount Rushmore, to really show the sport what it is, John Jones, Anderson Silva, Amanda Nunes. That 4th spot is really the hardest spot.
Is it?
Personally, I think I'm back on the Jose Aldo would be my 4th
Jose Aldo.
Personally, looking at his career with where he started, where he is, even today, we're still mentioning his name in today. His reign, his glory was great. There are a lot of names I'm willing to sub out for him, but me personally, based off what I've seen, I love Jose a lot.
You're definitely missing at least 2. We're not going to get into it right now. There'll be plenty of time for that. And, we'll get into that. Like I said, unlike you, I'm fairly new to the sport, having only been a fan since, I saw Conor McGregor versus Khabib back in the day, but I really didn't know what I was watching. I was just caught up in the Conor McGregor hype. He's facing Khabib. It's at T-Mobile, huge spectacle. Definitely in college, so whole event. After that, didn't really tap into the UFC or MMA until about late 2019, early 2020. Funny enough, was actually at your house. You had some people over. Our friend group, we're very tight-knit. We like to compete one way, through video games. So that day we were playing FIFA, Madden, 2K. I'm dusting everybody. I'm killing everybody in all the games. I'm not gonna lie to anybody on here.
Okay.
But whenever they would go to play that UFC, was it UFC 3?
3 at the time.
Whenever they went to play that game, I used to get so upset because I'm like, I don't know UFC. I don't know the controls. I don't know the fighters. I don't know anything. I got tagged up that day. I got disrespected. I went home later. I said, I'm going to buy this game. I'm going to learn it like the back of my hand, which I did. I learned it. Nowadays, I'm dusting everybody again. But that's where my interest in the sport kind of festered. I said, wow, this is a great sport. Like, I should actually look into real life, not just the video game. And in that January 2020, was when Conor faced Cowboy. It was Conor's big return. He, took the time off. He had a suspension, all that. He came back, fought Cowboy at welterweight. That's when he gave him the shoulder strikes. It was a spectacle. I was almost sold. I was like, wow, like this is what the sport is. This is great. Then the next pay-per-view was John Jones versus Dominic Reyes, and that was a banger. Debatable, really wanted that fight. But again, not going to get into it. But regardless, that really piqued my interest, especially because, these fighters are coming from all different walks of life. I'm a football player. I played, collegiately, professionally in the NFL. And I remember at that time, this is the off season. I'm kind of away from football a bit. And I see Dominic Reyes. And he played football at Stony Brook, which is similar to a college I went to. And I'm like, wow, he's a football player, a former football player. And now he's in the MMA space. So that immediately caught my interest. I was sold. From that point on, there were banger after banger after that. I still love the sport. As you see, I'm sporting this UFC 276. This was the first event I ever went to, featuring my favorite fighter, Israel Adesanya. Got the win over Jared Cannonier. You know, he's on his way back. Don't worry, don't trip. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I started to train a little bit just to kind of know what I'm talking about, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited about it all.
Definitely exciting stuff. Like I said, we've been planning, we've been sending voice messages to each other, talking about UFC events and fights and debatables and opinions for at least going on 3 years now. So this is something we've been charging up for a while.
No, because it's crazy. There were just times, especially early on, where I just felt like I couldn't get my thoughts out. You know, you can go on Twitter and tweet and do all that stuff, but I wanted to have real life conversation. You were always somebody I could go to no matter what time, no matter what card, whatever's going on, what fighter. I could go to you and get your honest opinion. I will say we butt heads at times.
A lot of times.
It's natural, as you guys will see on this show. You know, some of these debates might get a little heated. You never know. But yeah, I mean, and also I wanted, because I did ask you about your GOAT list, I'm gonna give you guys the correct GOAT list. So at 1, we got Jon Jones. You know, it's never really lost a fight. Most defenses respect it. Anderson Silva, you're coming in at 2. Respect it. At 3, I thought it was a no-brainer. George St. Pierre. Ron has some bias against George. Definitely I feel like I kind of hear you, but I really don't. So I'm a big fan of George. I think he's secure on that 3rd list. That 4th spot, that is where it gets a little dicey. Me personally, I'm a Khabib fan, so naturally I want to put Khabib in there. I'm a big fan of the Dagestani way. I'm an honorary member. I should visit one day. But I understand the reasons why people might not want to put him there. So I could slide DJ in there. I think you don't respect DJ at 4.
Oh no, I definitely respect it. He's one of my guys that can easily interchange. I just in the earlier days of DJ, I wasn't as locked in to him though, which is why I gave it to Jose. I was locked into Jose. I was very locked in.
I mean, we're all just splitting hairs here. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking. But you know, that's enough of the past. Let's get to what's going on right now. UFC 298. We got a banger of a card.
Big banger.
After UFC 297 was cool. Didn't have that firepower, that fire that we really needed. UFC 298 is going to deliver that. We got
for sure
some heaters on the card. We got Roman Kopylov versus Anthony Hernandez, but more importantly, man, we got Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo, Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal, Paulo Costa versus Rob Whittaker, finishing out the night with Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus Ilya Topuria. I mean, what just when you hear all of these fights, what is your first thoughts? Like, what are you thinking?
Fireworks. There should be look, all those fights could end up easily being finishes. Okay, could easily all end up being finishes. Definitely a card that look the year starting off right. We'll say that much.
For sure. And well, let's get into it. First fight, we got Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. This is, this is a very important fight in the bantamweight or in the bantamweight division. It's kind of crazy that this is the 4th fight on the main card. This is typically a fight that would headline a fight night, if not a pay-per-view.
Right.
But we're extremely blessed with this. Henry Cejudo versus Merab, 2 wrestlers, 2 stocky, relentless guys. What are your initial thoughts on this fight?
My initial thoughts, definitely, this is one of those fights that, stylistically is very interesting. We know Henry Cejudo, former Olympian. We know Marab, he's a mauler. He gets compared a lot to his style from like those early Khabib days. Like like as far as the ground game goes, when you have two high level guys like that, I mean, like it can go so many different ways. But also, these are both fighters that are willing to get in there, and because they're so confident about their ground, they're willing to throw with you too. So this is definitely one of those matchups that I think can go. It can go either way, but I'm gonna put my faith into Henry. I think Henry is definitely coming back. He's definitely hungry. I believe he wants to prove that, you know, all that talking on the internet, all those tweets for about 2 years wasn't for nothing. He is who he says he is.
No, this is a very important fight for Henry. I mean, as you just kind of stated, he won the bantamweight and flyweight. He was double champ. Then he retired. He beat Dominic Cruz. Then he retired. Sat out for 2.5, 3 years. Came back and incredibly, in my opinion, came back against Aljamain Sterling off of the couch. Not off the couch because he had a full training camp and all that, but without having fought for that long, came back and had a great fight against Aljamain. I feel like that can't go unnoticed. He's clearly Triple C for a reason, wrestling aficionado. And like you said, he can bang, but I mean, don't get me wrong. Marab's a gangster.
He is.
Like, he's a gangster. And let me note, this fight is 3 rounds. This is a 3-round fight. I would have loved to see this be 5 rounds, which, you know, obviously if it's the 4th fight of the card, we can't.
Doesn't it feel like it should be 5? It just feels like it should be a 5-round fight.
Well, because you remember when Marab fought Peter Yan.
Yeah.
That's the fight that I think a lot of people open their eyes to Marab. I feel like me and you have been on the Marab. We've seen him on our radar for a while, but that fight against Peter Yan, I don't even know how many takedowns he attempted. He attempted like 50. Not really, but close.
A lot.
Like, he was relentless. And I guess that's one kind of thing I've been struggling with this fight is, does 3 rounds benefit him more than Henry, or does Henry kind of benefit more? Because, you know, in Henry's opinion, in his mind, he's saying, look, I have 3 rounds. I don't have to conserve. I don't have to save. Marab, on the other hand, he's saying the same thing. He's saying, I can go hard in the paint. So who gets the advantage there?
I want to say it's Henry. And the reason I'm saying Henry is because of those matchups back with DJ. It doesn't get any more high level than those two clashing at that time period. And they both reversing, taking down, stuffing each other. That was high level grappling. And it wasn't all offensive. It was some reversals. It was some just getting up off your back. Like it was a whole bunch of clinch work. It was a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, remember, like, he's the Olympian. This isn't like he grew up grappling. This is all he knew for half his life. So when I think about it like that, I get he's 37, he's a little older. Marab, he's hungry. He's always been hungry. When you see him fight, he is an animal. He's hungry. But when I see Henry, knowing who he is, what he has shown us, it just feels like one of those fights that Henry's going to show that his experience is going to take over. I
hear you. I do. This is a incredibly important fight for Henry Cejudo. He stated in one of his, you know, they have the pre-fight press conferences, the interviews. He stated that if he loses this, he's retiring. And he didn't mince words. He didn't say, you know, if I lose, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board, or he didn't do anything like that. He said, I'm a winner. I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I'm a double champ. I only came back to the UFC to win. But if I don't, I'm out. It's not about money. It's not about fame. It's about getting that gold. He said if he doesn't win, he's out. And unfortunately, I think he's going to be out. You know, Marab.
No, man.
Marab should have had a title shot. This isn't some up-and-comer. This isn't some guy who was gifted. He should have had his title shot. Obviously, his best friend, Aljo, had the belt for a while. And Dana White even said, like, maybe a year or two ago, Merab was first in shot for the belt. He said whenever he wants to fight for the belt, he can. I think his pace, I think his stamina, I think all of that is going to come into effect here. He might not, I don't think he's going to have the best success wrestling. I think that's where the fight's going to kind of stall out. I think Henry and him are going to clash with that, and it's going to end up on the feet. And I think Merab might have the edge on the feet.
Oh, see, that's where we definitely disagree. Because I definitely thought if Merab is Merab and he tries to really maul Henry, though it's a 3-round fight, knowing how relentless Merab can be, he might be able to wear down Henry, and I think that would be his
Yeah.
road to getting a win. But as long as this fight stays on the feet, look, if you remember, Henry came into the UFC, everyone thought he was going to be this. Don't get me wrong, he's an outstanding wrestler, one of the greatest of all time. He wasn't trying to wrestle. He was in there throwing hands with the best.
No.
Henry has those. He can throw strikes with the best of them, even against Aljamain. He showed Aljamain like this isn't gonna be just a walk in the park for you. Those earlier rounds were very debatable rounds. Some of those earlier rounds. With that being said, Merab, I think he has to rely on his relentlessness for the takedown. If he doesn't, I think the hands are gonna go to Henry. The striking is gonna be all Henry.
Well, let me rephrase, because I think in a stand up, hey, let's spar, hey, let's just touch each other from distance, let's box. For sure, Henry is the cleaner striker. He is more technical. He knows how to control range better. I understand that. That's not what I'm saying though. I don't think Merab is it's gonna be a masterclass striking event. I think it's gonna get dirty. He's going to go for the takedowns and stuff. Whether he's successful or not, that remains to be seen. But I think he's going to make it dirty on the feet. It's not going to be a clean kind of match. It's going to be dirty. He's going to clinch. And obviously, Henry's more than adept in those situations. But I think combined with the pace, I don't know if Henry can keep up. I don't know.
I get it. He's a little older. I think in the 3rd round, the pace could wear. But those first two rounds, if Henry can just show he can keep on his feet, and when it's dirty, look, Henry's powerful now too. Like, don't get it wrong. Like, he's shown some flash in his day. I believe Henry definitely can, no matter how reckless Merab may come out against him, knowing how good his wrestling is, like he's gonna is naturally just not care about his form when it comes to some of these punches. I think Henry is so good in the hands. He's so technical. He knows how to fight off his back foot a little bit. He knows how to stay safe, but also give it to you.
Hey, I respect it. I respect Henry. This is gonna be a good fight. I think we're in store for him. We're incredibly blessed. That's the 4th fight. But speaking of the other fights, coming in at 3, another banger featuring your boy. We got Ian Machado Gary versus Jeff Neal. I'm incredibly excited for this one as well. We got 2 welterweights, two solid welterweights. What are you thinking, man?
Man, look, Ian Gary. Do you remember me sending you videos of Ian Gary back in Cage Warriors?
I do.
Like before he was a UFC guy. Like, I've been following Ian for a while. I love the way he strikes. He's so technical. He just gets it. He fights way more mature than just being a typical 26-year-old. He's very mature in his striking. He knows his strengths and his weaknesses. He just got back from Brazil. He's been working out a little bit more in just those hands. If the fight happens to go somewhere else, I'm just saying. But as far as just the striking ability of Ian, he really looks like he can be the future. And I would love to see him, and I would love to see where he goes, even after this fight and a couple of fights after this.
I mean, he's an extremely exciting fighter. He's had some controversial ways off the canvas. I will say that, which is kind of wild to me because you just mentioned, you put me onto Ian Gary early on. He was in Cage Warriors overseas in Europe, and people weren't really hip to him, but he was an up and comer. He's Irish, so naturally he's gonna get the Conor McGregor comparison. We're not here to take part, we're here to take over vibes. His first few fights in the UFC, he was extremely likable. People were rooting for him. They said, hey, he's carving out his own lane. He's doing this, he's doing that. Everybody loved it. As of recently, for whatever, well, I shouldn't say for whatever reason, because there's definitely reasons. The fans are kind of turning on him between, his whole fight with Neil Magny, where he was putting him on blast, talking, and also about his wife. Sean Strickland was commenting on his wife and the way he was handling it. He's received some negative press, but like I said, none of that has to do once they step into the cage. He's an extremely exciting fighter, but he's going against Jeff Neal. I think Jeff Neal is the most slept on fighter in this card. He's a savage. He's a savage. He fought Shatkov Rachmanov last fight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people really watched that fight. He did get subbed, but that was in the third round. The first two rounds of that were incredible. And
it was bang out.
He's the person that we've seen put Shavkat in danger. So I think if Ian comes in here sleeping on Jeff, I think he might be in for a rude awakening.
You're definitely right. Ian, he has a tendency to get a little cocky at times. If you ask me, I'd call it a little bit of some confidence, because let's go back to the fight with Neil Magny. When he fought Magny, people thought, oh, why doesn't he just put him away? Why doesn't he just attack him? But he could have did this a lot earlier into the fight. He drugged the fight on, just simply staying safe, kept on kicking the legs. And even in the interview, he even mentioned, people want me just to go, just attack him, just try to maul him. But, I kept it composed. I have an advantage here. He kept on attacking the leg. He kept breaking them down. He was breaking that man's will. There's a lot of fighters that wouldn't have sat back and did that. That's some of that maturity. He said, look, I'm working here. He's facing, Magny is not a slouch. Magny is an experienced in a well-rounded fighter. He's a good fighter. Ian made him look like he was just some average Joe. I mean, if you ask me, we comes to Ian, I don't think he sleeps on any of his opponents. I think what you're seeing is confidence, and I believe he will be just as confident against Neal.
I hear what you're saying. I'm all for the smart fighter. He could have got Neal out of there, bro. He was spamming leg kick. He had him in trouble, and he kept throwing leg kicks, which, in a tight fight, in a fight where you're not supposed to be there, anything like that, that might rock. That might be fine. But you're Ian Gary. You're undefeated. You're supposed to be the up-and-coming challenger for the belt within the next few years, if not months. You got to put him out. Why are we trying to leg kick why are we trying to spam leg kicks? We need to, he put him down with leg kicks, get on top, ground and pound, do something. Get him out of there. You need that KO, that TKO on your record, especially against a guy like Neil Magny. That goes a long way.
I definitely hear you. Would it have been nice? Yeah, but he's more... I get what you're saying because of who he is right now. A finish looks better than just, than what he was doing, honestly. Like you said, he could have probably finished it earlier, but in his mind, I am an elite fighter. I am an elite striker. I'm showing more than just knockout skill. I'm showing something that real fans are going to truly appreciate, because there's not people who 26 years old doing this to Neil Magny.
Nah, he's young. Looking at the height, I mean, he's 6'2" versus 5'9". That's, I will say, Jeff has better reach. Just gonna put that out there. So I'm assuming you're going with Ian on this one.
Personally, I'm going Ian. No disrespect to Neil. He's a really dangerous striker. You said you mentioned a couple of his fights more recently. Definitely was a banger against Rachmanov, but I think Ian is so technical. I think he's the future. I think like he is just in the way of a bigger prize for Ian.
I respect it. I'm not trying to oppose you here. I think I'm gonna rock with Jeff Neal. I might be biased just because I think Jeff Neal sometimes gets overlooked. He gets shafted, and for as much of a savage as he is, he just doesn't get his due, and that doesn't sit well with me. I mean, he took out Vicente Luque.
I agree with you. You're right.
He
deserves more respect.
Took out Ponzinibbio. I mean, these are two guys that don't just get taken out. He's taking them out. So, but I will say, I think this is going to be an extremely good fight. Could go either way. But now we're getting into the nitty gritty. The
gritty nitty.
Rob Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. This could be fight of the night. Any of these fights could really be fight of the night. But
Very
this
true.
one really could be fight of the night. You got two guys who need this victory. Rob coming off his loss to Dricus. Paulo hasn't fought in forever. He's Mr. Pullout himself. Both of them need this. And the thing is, now that Izzy's not at the top of the helm, the division's wide open. Sean Strickland didn't defend his belt. Will Dricus defend his belt? That's to be seen. But I have no reason to believe that Dricus is going to hold the belt any longer than Sean did, especially if one of these guys gets the next shot. So I mean, this might be a pick 'em. What are you thinking here?
I'm going with Paulo here, and I'm going with Paulo more or less because Robert Whittaker, I feel like his actual time has came and gone, and it unfortunately was during the time of Israel Adesanya.
Why do people think that?
Because, man, like, look, that Dricus fight, you can't convince me that wasn't supposed to be a Robert Whittaker win.
It was.
Like in theory, you shouldn't have even had to turn that fight on. You should have just knew Robert Whittaker was going to be Robert Whittaker. He was going to come into that fight, do what he had to do to get to win, and it was going to be simple as that. I get Dricus, definitely. He showed me more in that fight than I expected to see out of him. But we've seen Robert Whittaker, without Israel Adesanya, was the top of the mountain. He was the top of the mountain of the division. And losing to Dricus, those fights losing to Izzy, I'm just starting to think, is he Robert Whittaker anymore? Is the momentum starting to really, really just flow the other way for him? And I think for Robert, maybe it's a mental thing, but I'm starting to think that he may just not be who we need him to be anymore. And that just may be the simple problem here.
This is recency. This has to be recency bias because let's just take a step back. Let's take a step back.
Okay.
Robert Whittaker fights Israel Adesanya.
Sure. Right.
I mean, the first fight, look it, nobody's a bigger Izzy fan than me. The first fight wasn't even close. Obviously, knocked him out. All that. The second fight, Izzy won. Don't get me wrong. Izzy won that fight, but by no means was that a runaway dub. Like, that was a good fight. Rob was still him then. And I mean, that was 2022.
Then
he came back, he fought Vettori, made him look like a clown. Just embarrassed him. And that's another guy who I don't think gets the credit that he deserves. Marvin's been in the top 10, in the top 5 for a while. Like that win means something. Whether we want to admit it or not, that win means something. Yes, he went to fight Duplessis, and he just wasn't on his game. He even said in different interviews he underestimated Dricus, and he underestimated Dricus's will to win, which might sound like excuses to most, but if you're a true competitor, sometimes you sleep on your opponent and they come out and they shock you. That's never happened.
Bro, if you're a true competitor, there is no one that should be put in front of you that you're not going in there thinking I'm about to do whatever it takes to get this dub.
I no.
There's no way he should have slept. Like, like that fight was. I get it. I get it. As the fan, we're allowed to think that fight was a lock. He's not allowed to think that. He's not allowed to think that. He should be with the mindset of I'm about to let him understand we are two different tiers. He didn't do that.
I don't think he literally I don't think he was not training as hard or he just was so unconcerned. Because anytime you get in a fist fight, anything can happen. So I don't think he literally slept on him. I think he just underestimated Dricus' style and he underestimated how much confidence Dricus had, which it happens. I mean, let's look for an example to parallel here. Think about a college football game. Alabama's not going to blow out every team. There's times where Alabama plays A&M and it's a 63-10 win. There's sometimes Alabama plays A&M and it's 24-21 at halftime. And we're like,
Johnny Manziel out there. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, Alabama is in a tight game. Like, what is going on? Sometimes things don't flow right. Sometimes you sleep. Now, eventually, Alabama, they come back, they pick it up, and they end up winning the game. Rob clearly didn't do that against Dricus because it's MMA. You get knocked out if you're lacking in that way. But it happens. I don't think we can. I mean, we definitely can knock him. Don't get me wrong. We can knock him for that. But we can't hold that and say, oh, he's washed. Especially, he has fight miles. True. John Jones has fight miles. Does John Jones have fight miles?
He's the GOAT, though. That's different. It is. Because he's the GOAT, that makes it different.
How does that make it different?
It is different. He fought Cyril, bro. We're about to get off topic in a second. He fought Cyril Gane, who was looked at as probably the most dangerous heavyweight at the time. He got him. It didn't last around.
Okay. Charles Oliveira. He has a lot of fight miles.
He has a lot of fight miles. But I can admit, as one of my favorite fighters, I do worry about those fight miles. I think his time has to be right now. If it's not right now, it may be it for him. Maybe wraps.
When I think of fight miles, I'm thinking glass chin. I'm thinking Luke Rockhold. I'm thinking guys like that who just go out there looking sloppy, go out there glass chin, getting put down, don't have the same speed. Rob doesn't look like that. If we remember the fight against Dricus, he looked solid. He just got overwhelmed.
Oh, that's a beautiful word to use right there. He got overwhelmed. And what does Paulo Costa do?
See, that is true. But Rob, when he's on, it doesn't matter if you're overwhelmed. He's fought Yoel Romero. I mean, he's fought guys that are nonstop.
Look, that jab is going to help you only so much when Paulo's slinging haymakers at your face.
Yeah, but you got to land those, and you got to be able to do that for 3 rounds. Which
I hear you.
I mean,
go.
I'm a Paulo fan too. You know, we had our riffs when he was going against Izzy. Don't get me wrong. You know, I was a Paulo hater. Love his social media now. He's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. So don't get me wrong. I go back and forth with this fight. I just don't like when people discredit Rob and say that his time is coming to an end when I personally don't think it is.
I'm a big believer in fight miles. So maybe that's where, for me, it's where it comes from. Because I definitely think when it comes to the guys who have been doing this since they were like 21, 20 years old, just to give like an example of like a situation like that, by the time you are in your mid 30s, to a lot of fighters, you could be at the height of your career at that time. For me, when you are one of those guys, I feel like, I don't know, it's something about seeing the evolution of your game. Some people, it can be looked at as maturity, but the same dog isn't there. The physical dog is there. We're talking about Robert Whittaker. We know he's Robert Whittaker, but it's just something about like the aura that he's just radiating right now. Like that Dricus fight, I really thought was a no-brainer. And the fact that he even lost the fight after losing fights to Izzy, like you're being compared to Izzy. You're on the top of the mountain with names like Israel Adesanya, and to lose to Drakus really just feels like, wow. If Izzy lost to Drakus, what would we have said then? Like we would have been like, oh, we probably looked at Izzy like, oh wow, he's slipping. I don't know. Maybe he was just off that day. Robert lose, and we're sitting here like, is he even the same person? I don't think he's in that same category anymore. I don't think he's amongst the top of the mountain anymore. I think he is falling off.
But Drakus has the belt. I think that's what people are forgetting. I think you're forgetting. Drakus is the middleweight champion of the world right now. Like he didn't lose to some nobody. He didn't lose to Drakus and then Drakus went out there and got beat by Sean Strickland. He lost to the guy who has the belt right now. Like it's not like he lost to a nobody.
I think right now the division is a revolving door. Though he does have the belt, he doesn't defend it for 2 fights. That doesn't happen. I think it's a revolving door right now. He may defend it 1 time. It won't happen twice. Him having the belt is an accomplishment. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take away from him being a champion because he had to do a lot to get there. He's a real champ. He's not a fake champ. He's a real champ. That's a whole other conversation, though.
We'll get into
a whole other conversation. He's a real champ, but at the same time, he doesn't strike me as the rightful owner of the belt right now. I think his revolving door is going to keep on switching hands until the next great claims it as his division.
So in your world, where does Paulo go from here, assuming he wins? Is he next in line for the belt? Does he need one more? What's his angle on this?
Because of rankings, I want to say he should be amongst the names for the belt. I'm not mad if he doesn't do it, but I think you set up a fight between him and maybe Sean Strickland. I think that is a fight that will be more determining of both those fighters' situations. Because Robert Whittaker, like I said, he as ranking wise and for who he is, beating Robert Whittaker is a feat. Like that's a great feather in your cap. Therefore, maybe you don't want to give him a title shot immediately, but have him fight the former champion. And then maybe if he wins that fight, I don't see why you don't have him fight Drakus.
Now, I'm going to offer something a little bit different here. And I don't know if people are going to feel this. I don't know how it's going to go. They were supposed to fight before. Paulo wins this. I'm matching Khamzat up with somebody right now. I'm matching him up with Sean Strickland. I'm matching him up with Marvin Vettori. I'm getting Khamzat Chimaev in a fight with a top 5, top 10 middleweight. So then Paulo wins here. Khamzat wins in the next. Put him on 300. I don't know. He wins his next fight. That's a title eliminator right there. I think that's a perfect segue for him. I can't give Paulo the next shot off of this fight. Because, I mean, you beat Luke Rockhold, who's 40, and didn't even want to be in the ring, really. And he still, at least in the 3rd round, put Paulo down and took him down. So I'm not going to let Paulo just waltz his way, especially after being a pull-out merchant. Especially after being a guy who's pulled out 4 of his last 5. I'm not going to give him credit for a title shot. As deserving as I think he is, I think he poses a great problem for Drakus. I can't reward him for that.
I do. I get it. I really do get it. And honestly, you mentioning Khamzat is actually really good because he is a monkey wrench in all of this.
He is.
Because, of course, like I said, there is Israel Adesanya. There is the champion, Drakus. There's the former champion, Sean Strickland. And there is Khamzat. With all of that, it really feels like Khamzat really, like he deserves a fighter in that top 5.
Has to.
But like, gosh, if he wins one, do you give him the shot?
Yeah.
And then if that's what you're gonna do, whoever you put in front of him has to be, in my opinion, either Sean or Izzy, which I'd rather see him fight Izzy.
I would as well. But that's just I don't think Paulo gets past this, so I can't even get that deep into that. I think Rob wins. I think he's in line for the next title shot. I think he gets his lick back. They might want to put him up against Sean Strickland because there is a large percentage of people that had that Sean Strickland versus Dricus fight going the other way. So there's a lot of people that wanted Sean to get his immediate rematch. Obviously, he couldn't really do that just based off probably the numbers, how the pay-per-view sold. Can't run that back immediately. But they might want to get Sean some more run in there at the belt. So I think you maybe match Rob up with him if Rob wins this, have them come to blows, which I think Rob would dub him there. And then Rob's back. He's back for the belt. Obviously, there's a lot of other plays. You got Izzy, you got Hunter.
A lot of different ways.
You got all these other cards here. So this is just a big cluster. But you got Paulo, I got Rob. That wraps up that fight. Now for the main event of the evening. This is a heater. This is a heater. I mean, Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, the Georgian, who resides in Spain. This is the main event for a reason. This is the guy that they're saying is going to take down Volk for good reason. For good reason. He's a savage. Ilia, I've followed him for a while now. I saw him when he had his little beef with Patty the Batty Pimblett. He went up to lightweight that same card, got him a dub, came back, submitted Bryce Mitchell, went to decision with Josh Emmett, pulled out the dub. He fits the bill, but he's going up against arguably the greatest featherweight in UFC history in Volk. So, I mean, this is a hard one. What are your initial thoughts?
I'm definitely glad you put quotations there. Very respectable. Very respectable. Very respectable there. Good job.
I respect Jose and what he did.
For sure.
But,
for sure.
His run, Jose's run is over. He retired. Alexander, he's still going, so that's why it's still in progress. But,
for sure.
What are we thinking?
Man, this is a very stylistically interesting matchup.
For sure.
Because when you think of Alexander, you think of a guy without a hole in his game. You really think about a guy who, no matter where you take it, he has some kind of answer, especially within the division. And that's an important part within the division. He's had some hiccups.
Yeah.
He's had a couple losses to Islam. I think in that particular matchup, there was more in his mind that he was maybe overthinking that kind of changed the way he was fighting a little bit. I feel like he was a little slower in pace than he typically is. And I think that's a credit to Islam's wrestling, even though a lot of people may go back and watch 1 and 2, and they'll probably say like Islam was a very game striker those fights. He was very okay with standing up with Volk. That doesn't take away from the fact that he's such a dangerous wrestler that Volk had to think about it. And I think Volk couldn't decide to strike truly with him in the back of his mind. He can get taken down. And the issue isn't that he gets taken down and mauled. The issue is he gets taken down and gets held there for an entire round. Because Islam's a really good wrestler, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he was going to just maul Alexander on the ground. I don't think that was going to happen.
Well,
it wasn't going to happen. Let's be honest. He wasn't going to. Alexander Volkanovski. He wasn't going to maul Alexander Volkanovski on the ground. And with that being said, I mean, when you're Alexander, he had a lot to kind of worry about. But when you're facing my man Ilia here, you don't have to worry about that. You don't even have to particularly worry about takedowns, honestly. And he is good enough all around as a fighter where that you should think his confidence should be there. I just don't know if it's truly there off of the kind of the recent losses he's taken. I'm personally going with Ilya here. And it's more than just the fact that it's because of his confidence. I'm going with Ilya because I was doing a little research on Alexander. I was looking for a place. What is Ilya's route to a win here? Something consistently that I noticed about Volk's fights is there were moments when they were close, they were banging, when they were in the when they were in the box, in the phone booth a little bit, where he was getting within like many of his fights, he gets caught with hooks almost like at least once a fight. It seems like he may start the combination, but he kind of sometimes leaves his chin a little higher than he should. And in the middle of this combination, he gets caught either with a straight across his chin, or the fighter happens to kind of do a slight slip and it hits him with a counter hook. And it seems to be always with the left. Like it's not typically, he does a good job of avoiding the power hand, but it's the off like that seems to be connecting against Volk. And Ilya is probably the best boxer in the maybe in the UFC right now, not even just the division. And with that being said, like, don't get me wrong, Ilya has also been shown to be able to, get touched a little bit. But when you're the boxer that he is, that's going to happen. He has a very boxing influence. He doesn't do too many kicks. He's not going for too many body kicks, head kicks. He's going to square up in front of you, two hands in front, and he's going to say, let's turn this to a boxing fight. Like, let's do this. And with that being his main discipline, especially on the feet, I think he's going to expose some of those little holes, very small, minuscule holes that are only open for a millisecond, but he's going to expose those against Volk.
What you said makes a ton of sense, and I agree with not everything, but most of what you just said. I personally am not going to hold the whole Islam what you mentioned about Islam. I'm not going to hold that second fight against him. Islam, pound for pound, number one fighter in the UFC right now. I don't hold a loss to him on 11 days notice. I don't hold that against him, which I think, people are. They're not saying he's washed like how they're talking about Rob, but they're saying he's passed. He got knocked out. He's not invincible, all these things, which I personally just don't see. I mean, this guy, especially being 5'5", which Ilya is 5'6", so it's not that big of a deal in this fight. He's extremely good at controlling distance.
He is.
For how he does. So and one thing he said this week really resonated with me, and it goes with what you just told me about Ilya's style, about Ilya being a pure boxer. And I'm not going to exactly quote him here, but in one of the embeddeds, he essentially said that if all I have to worry about is boxing, then I'm not really worried. He's not worried about the style. He's obviously worried about Ilya's, he's extremely powerful. He's extremely fast. He's extremely fluent with his combos. He's worried about that. But this guy's, he's seen Yair Rodriguez. He said, when I fought Yair Rodriguez, I had to worry about switch kicks, teep kicks, question mark, as well as hand combos, all at lightning speed. He said, with this fight, the danger is higher, but I have less to worry about. I have less to be concerned about. A leg kick every now and then isn't going to end the fight. I know how to control distance. I know how to keep people at bay. I know how to enter, get out. Against a boxer, it shouldn't be that hard. And obviously, it could be. I'm not saying that it's not. But I think he's very confident that boxing isn't just that alone. Is that enough to take down the greatest featherweight of all time?
If you ask me, I think it's funny. The one thing about Ilya's style is I am skeptical about what does he do against a high level kickboxer? Someone who really knows how to manage distance and knows how to keep you away using their legs. Volk is a very smart fighter. He has a game plan. He wants to execute on every fighter who he faces. Um, I feel like Volk is going to come out there with a more kickboxing type of style. You're going to see front kicks. I don't think you're going to see too many head kicks or maybe too many body kicks to the side because he doesn't want to expose himself to a hook to the head or a counter in the same moment. I think he's going to try to keep it to front kicks. He's going to definitely get some knees in there when they engage like very quickly. He's going to clinch it up. But the thing about the front kick is it's more than just damage. It's more than just it's a distance controller. You throw a front kick at Ilya while he's trying to box, he can't touch you. He can't touch you. He's gonna have to figure out something about that distance. He's gonna have to sidestep. He's gonna have to time it up. He's gonna have to figure something out to have to get within range of Volk. But Volk is he's very athletic. He can move. He gets that he may for a moment be able to close the distance on Volk, but Volk's gonna get up out of there. He's not gonna allow Ilya to just walk him down and just literally box him for an entire fight. I think it would be idiotic almost for Volk to decide to get engaged in a true boxing match with Ilya. I think he's too smart for that. So he's going to go into that fight, show a little more kickboxing than he has in the past. He's going to show front kicks. He's going to show probably some leg kicks. He's going to throw some body kicks, not too many. He's going to throw some body kicks, and he's going to just manage the range well. But with all that being said, I don't think it's going to be enough for Ilya. I think Ilya is going to. When you fight this way, you went through so many practices, so many trainings. You have to be aware that kickboxing being the style that would naturally try to counter you, that you have to figure out a game plan way long time ago about how you would deal with this thing. So I feel like this has to be something that this team has talked about. They have to know about what possibly can happen, especially against a smart fighter like Volk. So I feel like Ilya's going to be prepared for that. And ultimately, he's going to close the distance. He's going to get out the way. He's going to figure out how to get in there on Volk. And I don't know if Volk wants to see that situation. He doesn't want to see the phone booth situation. Now with Ilya.
I mean, I think Volk's a master at being able to switch it up. He can take it to the ground if he needs to, clinch, kickboxing. He's pretty fluent in all of those. But will it be enough? I think so. I know you're going with Ilya, which is crazy. We actually have disagreed on every pick so far, which is probably a first. Won't be the last, but probably the first. So, I mean, I don't know. I think Volk wins this, and then does he go up for that? I don't think he gets a trilogy. He doesn't get a trilogy.
No, yeah, he can't. Unfortunately, he can't. Yeah, he got thirsty. And that may have ruined it for him.
No, he definitely did. He ran into an immovable force, unfortunately, twice. But yeah, like I said, that kind of wraps up this card. This is going to be an amazing card. I'm extremely excited. I know you are as well.
For sure.
We got some plays of the week. This segment is just hypothetically, if we were to instruct people and place some bets, who would you bet on this week to make you some money?
For me, it's Paulo. I think the odds are right now plus 170. I think people are going to, by the time the fight is about to start, people are going to really start to sway towards Robert Whittaker. They're going to remember who Robert Whittaker is. They're going to really start to, they're going to do it naturally in the past based off of what they've seen. They're going to go with Robert. And I think the odds are going to only get better for Paulo because I really don't know if Robert's all there right now. And I really do think Paulo has to show up to that fight and show Dana, not only the world, but Dana, that he's still serious. And with that being said, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, there's good money to be made there for sure. I'm putting that in my parlay.
There definitely is. The odds plus 170 for a guy like Paolo who has that type of knockout power, but also is pretty well rounded, even on the ground, but mostly on the feet. That's a good pick. I respect it. I'm going with Rob, so I can't agree, but that's a good one. My play of the week. I don't know. He's on the main card. He's a savage. He's from Russia. Roman Kopylov. I think this guy is a savage. He's at plus 170 right now. I think this is a steal. I don't know if people are familiar with him. If you're not, please go to UFC Fight Pass. Please go to YouTube. Find some Roman Kopylov film and watch it. He's not your typical. He's not from Dagestan, so let's get that preconceived notion out the way. He is a knockout merchant. He can fight on the feet. He can take it to the ground if you need to, but his money's made on the feet, and he's gonna make you some money this week. Plus 170, lock it in. That wraps up that last segment of the day. We got our debate of the day. And this was funny. You actually brought this one to me. And the debate of the day is in the real world. Let's not think about the octagon. Let's not think about the canvas. Let's not think about the gym. In the real world, for self-defense, what is the best discipline to have? You say
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
which I for sure cannot agree. I would say the best. It has to be boxing. It has to be. You could throw kickboxing. I'm personally not gonna throw kicks in a self-defense situation, but boxing for sure. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Let me tell you why. I got you why. Growing up, my dad, I was big into the UFC. I wasn't sure for a while if I wanted to actually train or not. So throughout me being younger, when I was about to start training, when my dad was, one of the things my dad used to tell me a lot when I was still thinking about it is he's never seen a street fight that didn't eventually hit the ground. Think about a typical fight between two people. At some point, they're going to start grabbing each other. It's going to hit the ground. Look, a lucky punch can take out anybody. You can shadow box your way for 10 minutes a day to get some above average hands, and I average to the typical person outside. You can have better hands than them by just shadow boxing 15 minutes a day. But once there's some grabbing involved, once he tries to wrestle you, take you to the ground, regardless if you're on top or on the bottom, jiu-jitsu is going to get you that win. I just don't see a scenario where two guys truly on the street don't end up on the ground. And if that's going to happen, jiu-jitsu, man, all the way.
I think there's definitely scenarios in a self-defense type of situation where it wouldn't. But if it did, I just am not sure. This is how I see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in this type of situation. It's a great diffuser. It can diffuse any situation. If you want to have mercy on your opponent, I feel like it's a great way to do that because we've seen it plenty of times. A UFC fighter will be at a bar or on the street or something. Some fan, some random person will accost them. Maybe accost the people they're with. Something will break out. Somebody is starting to act up. What does the UFC fighter do? The UFC fighter knows they could knock this person out. They know they could ground and pound and do all that. But they're like, no, I know that. So for that reason, I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to put you in a guillotine, put you in a rear naked. I'm going to secure you. We've seen Kevin Holland chase people down on the street and subdue them with jiu-jitsu before. I agree. But in a self-defense situation where I got my back against the wall, things are happening. What is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu going to do for me?
Have you ever seen that interview of is Nate Diaz and I believe Bradley Martin? And they're sitting there talking about, Bradley, big guy. He's like, oh man, what would you do? Like, if we fought, Nate, what would happen? He starts off with little comments. You're a podcaster, brother. It's funny, but Bradley keeps on. He keeps on, and Nate's like, look, like if you got into a fight with Devin Haney, like he's a small guy, you grab him, you could probably do some serious damage. If we fought, you grab me, I kill you. And the thing about it is, he's right. Nate Diaz, who was probably 150 pounds less than Bradley Martin, such a way smaller person, if he was to put his hands on you, no matter how much bigger, how many weights you may lift, how well you think you could do how much wrestling done in your past, how much boxing you got in your past, once the moment comes down to where he has to put it where his hands grab you, it's already over. It's already over.
That's the issue, though. And I'm going to tell you why that's the issue. And whether you know Bradley Martin or not, he's a bodybuilder who is like 260, 270 pounds. He asked everybody, these fighters, if I fought, could I win? Blah, blah, blah. Bradley doesn't have hands. That's why he's saying that, because the argument, especially with the Devin Haney situation, Devin Haney clearly has better boxing than him, but he says, if I grab a hold of him, it's over. I don't think a lot of people in self-defense situations are thinking to grab somebody and go to the ground. You might do it out of desperation if you are, getting worked on the feet, essentially. But that wouldn't be my first thought. Every fight starts on the feet, whether it's in the octagon or it's not in the octagon. It starts on the feet. If you can't get past the feet, grappling, jiu-jitsu, you're going to pull guard on concrete? Is that what you're going to do? That's not going to work. That's not going to work.
The average person with adrenaline pumping in an intense situation where they ended up into a scuffle with someone, if you're already getting punches thrown at you and stuff, like I'm not gonna lie to you, you're gonna try to probably retaliate, you're gonna probably throw some punches, but there's gonna come a point where you may feel overwhelmed. Your instincts, I believe 100% are going to tell you, I need to grab him, I need to stop him from coming at me. And then once you grab him, like, between just like bodies moving and like weights just adjusting all over the place, you may fall, you may never go for a takedown, you guys could end up maybe even falling. And regardless if you fell on your back or you fell on top of him, the situation, knowing that, oh, I'm home, this is I'm used to this, we're on the ground, I got my hands on you. Come on, man. It may start it off on the feet, but your typical average person doesn't even if they know boxing. I don't see a situation where hands don't get put to someone. Someone's gonna grab somebody. It's gonna happen.
I mean, I guess, like I said, hopefully those people are pulling guard on grass and they got a safe little area to defend themselves. People in the comments or something, please let us know what you think. I'm really curious to know. But that wraps up this show, man. It was good. Can't wait till the next one. Anything else?
For me, no, good show. Like I said, I'm glad we finally started this. We're seeing our dreams come to fruition here. We're out here deciding just to do it. So yeah, coming from this being the first, can't wait for many more.
I couldn't said it better. Again, I appreciate you here. I appreciate everyone out there. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you later.